Hello, and welcome to this interview. So, this is a new podcast series where I deep dive into the minds of cool people, basically, who I really want an excuse to talk to. This might be entrepreneurs, marketers, thought leaders, to get inside their brain and uncover strategies and habits that drive what they do and what they help other people to do. My name is Peter Bray. I'm an ex-professional actor turned story-driven marketing consultant, and today I have an exceptional guest with me. His name is Pete Boyle. I came across Pete via a referral from someone who we both follow, and checked out his stuff, bought one of his products, and immediately reached out saying, would you be open to having a chat with me? And the result is this conversation. So Pete helps freelancers, consultants, business owners to master client acquisition with a method that I think is extremely underrated. It's been growing in popularity. And it really differentiates you from people who are growing their email lists using freebies, lead magnets. He tells a story about how he had an email list of thousands of people who are freebies seekers, and none of them were good people to have on his email list. All of that changed when he did what we talk about in this conversation. So I would highly recommend diving in. He tells a great story about how he got started, and we dive into so much valuable stuff. I'm going to put links below about where to find out more about Pete, but for now, please enjoy this interview, the first interview on my as yet unnamed show with Pete Boyle. So why don't you tell me a story? How did you? Where did you go to uni? Where does this all begin?
Mate. Do you want me to go way back as well?
Go back to
Cool.
To the very beginning.
So I was born in I think when I was young, I was always involved in loads of different sports. Loved playing football, loved martial arts. Had trials for football, never got in anywhere, just had trials at different places, and so then the martial arts sort of took over. When I was 16, I'm from Coventry in the Midlands. 20 minutes down the road, you've got Birmingham, UK's second city. There's a big martial arts exhibition that was there every year. I was 16, I met a guy who came over from Hong Kong, and he was doing some stuff, and I was like, that seems really cool. Spoke to him afterwards. He gave me the details of one of his head students who spoke better English. For 2 years, I kept in touch with them, and then at 18, I moved off to Hong Kong. Was an English teacher over there for a little while, and then realised that if I wanted to get jobs that I actually enjoyed, I spoke to people who were like, oh, you need a degree. I was like, I'll get a degree. What should I get a degree in? They were like, Chinese. I was like, perfect. So I went up to southern China, went to Guangzhou University for a year. It was the first year that university had foreign students. And so I was like, this doesn't really have the structure yet. Came back to the UK, went to uni in London. And my third year, they sent me back out to Asia, and then I came back. And I thought, right, at that point, my Chinese is awful now. But at that point, I spoke pretty good Chinese, and I was like, I'll get a job easy. Jobs weren't that easy to come by when I graduated, thanks to there's still the knock-on stuff from the 2008 recession. And I was like, right, a Taiwanese shipping firm was like, oh, we'll hire you. You speak Chinese. It'd be great. And then they had me speaking to some bloke called Keith in Manchester. And I was like, oh, great. And so I was like, oh, this is a waste of my degree. Left that, went to go do another job, ended up in this nice office in East London, but I was reading a book by a woman, and she was like how she makes a living as a freelance copywriter. She wrote the book from a beach in Bali. And when you're reading about somebody who's making more money than you, living on a beach in Bali with the great weather, and you look out the window and it's like winter London grey rain, I thought, what the fuck am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
And so the next day I handed in my notice. And I was like, I'm going to become a copywriter.
That's amazing. No contingency, just handed in.
No contingency. And then they said to me, oh, we can't let you leave because, somebody else had left at that time. We were like, we can't have you just quit. And I was like, I'll do 2 days a week. And they said, perfect. So I stayed on there 2 days a week, which was a real lifesaver, actually, because without that, I probably wouldn't have been able to have the runway that I needed to keep the fledgling business alive. Because I had no idea how to find clients. I had no idea how to write copy. I just thought, sounds like I can write a little bit. I could do this.
It's always. Well, I feel like for like the 2000s, 2010s, every copywriter who got into copywriting around then read a book about someone who wrote that stuff on the beach. Everyone. I'm pretty sure there's not a copywriter who didn't start off by consuming some kind of product that was like, I'm writing this from a beach, and was like, holy shit.
It was big. I think Tim Ferriss as well, like the 4-hour work week, really sort of popularized that idea. Was it? Yeah. And it was it's such a weird thing because it was him who did it, and then so many other people. And the one that I read was, I think it was Free Range Humans by a woman called Marianne Cantwell. And I don't know what she's up to now. I've not kept up with what she's doing because this is like 12, 13 years ago. But yeah, it was just, I thought, what am I doing? These people seem to have all the freedom. They're earning more money than I am.
Yeah, that looks great.
Yeah, I'm playing a fool's game over here.
Yeah. So you then, expected, okay, I'll quit my job, and because you didn't know any better, thought tomorrow I'll have all the clients I want and I'll be on a beach.
No, so fortunately, because of the job that I had, we were working with like big property developers across London, so we got really cheap places to live. So I was like, I didn't think that I'd walk straight into having loads of clients, but I thought it wouldn't take me too long. And I had super cheap rent in central London. I was living in Fitzrovia.
Great. Wow, really? Wow.
Yeah, in a blue plaque house. It was. You can still go by it. It's. Yeah, I know. It was. It was where the sort of suffragettes organised a lot of their meetings and things way back. And I was living in it for £250 a month, all bills included.
Good Lord. I have never heard of anything that ridiculous in my life.
Yeah. Millicent Fawcett's house is the blue plaque outside, number 2 Gower Street. Because I worked for the company that... Yeah. So I worked for a company that did like, guardianship. And so I worked with them. And so I just basically was like, I'll take this room. And they were like, perfect. So I managed to stay in there for a year between having 2-day-a-week work and cheap rent. I could keep going. I didn't really need to worry too much about getting loads of clients immediately, which really saved
brilliant.
Me. Yeah. I then realised I had to get my shit together because eventually they told me I had to move out because obviously somebody would come in and do something with the property, and then I had to go stay on a mate's sofa. So I was like, I really need to sort my thing. I really need to get this going. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so I did that, and I didn't really know what I was doing in copywriting. I started off taking any work that would come through. First job that I had was writing corporate bios for use on a website, and I was basically given 5 of them, and I think I was paid something like $25 per bio.
Right, yeah.
And I got paid for 2 out of the 5.
2 out of the 5. The other 3, they were like, we're not paying you for that.
She said, and I've kept the email, she was like, I can tell you know how to write, but copywriting's a different skill and you need to work on that. Like, I can use these 2, I can't use the other 3. And I was like, oh geez, maybe this is a bit harder than I expected.
What have I done?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know the Kelly and O'Connor emotional cycle of change model?
No.
You start off in uninformed optimism, where you think this will be great, this will be easy, and then comes the valley of despair, which
I've seen that. I know them. I hit that valley of despair hard.
Yeah, that sounds like a tough ride actually. So okay, what then?
After that, I kept trying to plug on, just trying to get any sort of clients that I could. Worked for all sorts of different companies. Was writing. Like at that point, I would take anything, and I was getting paid more and more money as I was going through. But it was all sorts of stuff. So there was one, and it was I can't remember the name of the business. Probably shouldn't say either. But I did like a big white paper for them, and I was like, oh, this long form stuff. I could always write quickly. So banging out like a big white paper, as long as I could have like a good plan in place, it didn't take me too long. That was the first client I had where they kind of tried to withhold payment until I threatened legal action, and then it came through. But
Wow. Okay.
so, it's all of those sort of
Yeah.
general, I think, freelancers' rites of passage. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's got to go through it, and then once you've gone through it, you
Everyone's gotta
never
hit
make
those,
those
yeah.
mistakes again. Then ended up doing like web copy for different brands, worked with adult entertainment businesses all the way through to like small local businesses, doing all sorts of weird copy jobs. I would just take anything at that point.
And where were these coming from? Were you applying to these? Was it like on a platform like
So-
Upwork or?
Yeah, I never really got anything out of like the Upworks or anything. Never. And over the years, I've spoken to a handful of people, and I've been doing this like 11 or 12 years now. And I can literally count on one hand the number of people who are making good money on those platforms. And when I say good money, the handful of people, we're talking they're making multiple six figures off them. And I still don't know how they do it. Like there's two or three people I could point you to, and they're just killing it. I don't know how it happens.
That's something.
But all of mine came from direct outreach and then referrals.
Right.
And so I was doing the usual thing of like just provide as much free value as possible. I was writing blogs, I was writing like social posts, I was doing all of this kind of stuff. I had emails that were going out 2-3 times a week. But most of the actual clients came from me emailing people like, if you have this problem, I can solve it. And then that's how I get them. And then they tell their friends and da-da-da-da-da. And so that was how I managed to eventually get a lot of the work. Very few inbound sort of things in those early days. It was mainly outbound stuff.
Right. Yeah. So that kept you going for how long would you say? What's the point where you think you really changed the model and became something else?
So I could tell you exactly how it happened and who it was.
Yeah, great.
So it's about 3 years in, maybe 2 years in. And I was fed up with this sort of scattershot approach. I was like, it's unsustainable. There's no way that I can use the work that I'm doing for an adult website to try and get clients for like software brands and what have you. And it's like, there's no way. My portfolio was just all over the place. And so then I started to like I need to niche down. I heard about conversion rate optimization, and I was like, that seems pretty cool. Went out, read a lot of stuff, read on a couple of different websites, Conversion Excel or CXL, PEP's website, Conversion Sciences with Brian Massey, and that led me to places like Crazy Egg. And then I noticed Crazy Egg was hiring. They posted a job somewhere that they were hiring for content writers. And I applied for that, and I did a ton of research first and put together this pitch. It was a short pitch, but very well researched. I was like, right, here's some pieces that I'd write. Here's what they'd cover. Here's what you'll get. And that went off to Catherine, who was their head of content at the time. And she was like, let's do it. And that was what changed it. Like Catherine giving me that chance, because then I managed to stay on the Crazy Egg writing team for like 2 or 3 years.
Oh, brilliant.
And the money that I was getting from that wasn't like, wow, full-time income or anything, but it was reasonable. But what it did get me was my name in front of all the people who are using those like monthly paid conversion rate optimization tools, and because I'm writing about what they're doing, they saw me as an authority. And so then people come to me to ask me to write their blog pieces or ask if I could help consult with certain things. So yeah, that was what really changed it. And then over the next couple of years, it was working for loads of different SaaS companies to help with their content writing and then sales materials and try and increase their conversion rates. And then it segued from there into more sort of sales material. And then from there into more the sort of strategy behind it all.
Yeah, I see. Which brings us to you kind of cracking the code really to help people who are marketing consultants, right? To launch new offers and new client acquisition funnels, basically, that cash flow from day one.
That's the plan. And I don't know if I've cracked the code, but it's working at the minute. So that's the thing. I think it's always a little worrying because, you have things that work. There is stuff that I used to do back in the day to get clients. And I had a system. I've always been very big on the systems underlying things because I think the system is more important than any single element within. And I had a system back in the day which just would not work now. I went to, this is how I get my copywriting clients for software companies and how I landed a lot of people where I was doing the sort of growth strategy behind it, I would go to Crunchbase. I'd look for the companies of a particular size who had raised at least X amount in funding over the last 30 days. And then I would email all of those people. And I had a VA who would like pull all of those people, find all of the email addresses, then they'd hand them off to me. And then I'd use HubSpot, the CRM, to just email those people. Right. And I knew that for every 100 that I would email, I'd get 6 people who were like interested, and 3 of those would turn into like clients. So I knew as long as I could send emails to 100 people every month, I could get clients. And just that very, very targeted approach, it just worked quite well. That would not work now.
Yeah.
So like the things
why,
that I'm doing
why
now,
wouldn't it work?
I think that now the whole game of outbound marketing has just become way more competitive. And the way that I was doing it back then just wouldn't work as well now. I think you have to be a little bit more creative. I don't do too much of it anymore because it's a lot of work. And, you know, I had a team at one point and I was thinned back down to just myself, and I don't want to have to put in that work because it just, it's not what I want to be doing.
It's boring,
but so that system,
yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But that system worked then. I don't think that system would work as it was now. And like you said, how I crack the code now, it's working now for me and for other people. But we'll have to keep on top of it and amend it as it goes, because what's working now might not work in a year. You know, you see it happening all the time with like the SEO crowd at the minute. Everything that's been working for them for the last 5 years is just tanked.
Yeah. They're in a bit of a panic. I keep seeing conversations where they're like, "What do we do?"
I know it's pretty crazy. I know guys who were running really good websites, and it's just they've been absolutely hammered. But as for the system now, there's just a couple of like fundamental shifts that I've found make the real difference, and I don't think those shifts will change too much. And actually, when I look back at what was working in the past, it's the things that worked for me in the past are still aligned with those kind of shifts that I now have moved everything towards. Like one of them now is that I want to find people who are willing to pay as soon as possible. And I don't mean like the mistake a lot of people make is they'll do cold outreach. Like I've had like 3 this morning, and we're on this at like 10:20 in the morning, and I've cleared 3 already this morning where they've just cold outreached me, never met them before, don't know who they are, and they're asking me to jump on a call with them, and I'm like, I don't know you. I'm just gonna like, you know, and they're like, oh, we do web development or whatever, and then I know if I jump on the call, they're going to try and sell me like a $2,000 service. It's too much. Like people can't make that jump for a lot of people. So I want to find the people who will pay as soon as possible, but I want to find them with like very, very low cost offers, because the threat level there is nothing. Even if somebody buys it and they're not 100% happy with it, they're just going to be like, there's not much consideration that goes into it, if that makes sense. They're happy to take that risk. And then what I found is the people who will pay you even $1 are more likely to pay you 100, 1,000, 10,000, and so on. A lot of people are just doing the whole thing where it's like, here's some free stuff, now pay me 15 grand or whatever it might be.
So talk us through the difference. So a lot of people are either what they're doing right now is that they're doing maybe cold outbound, or however they're doing it, they basically have one offer, which is like, jump in bed with me fully for my full service offer, or say no. Those are the options basically, and to do that you have to commit like an hour of time on what we both know is a sales call, or they're doing what else? They're doing freebie. Sign up for this freebie and I'll have your email list. So what's the big difference that's working right now for you?
Yeah, so I'll quickly touch on, I think, the 2 major problems with both of those.
Great.
I think a lot of the people who are like, jump on this call with me and we'll talk through it, it's very much a game that's played by like the big companies that have either got venture back in or they've got really healthy like revenue streams, so they can afford to have 50 people doing that. Just a whole sales team, but that sales team isn't really just sending a cold message to somebody and being like, hey, they got all of these systems that are tracking touch points and following up with the warm people. There's like a detailed system behind it. And if you're a smaller creator or entrepreneur, freelancer, consultant, whatever, it doesn't really work so well. Like they're copying the only bit that they see, which is that outreach part. They're not copying the bit which has taken them 2, 3, 4, 5 months to nurture that to the point where they're ready to buy. And most smaller businesses can't afford to wait 6 months to close a new client. Like if you're spending, say, $5,000 on all of the systems, the help on all of this today, can you do that consistently for 5 months before you get a return? Most small creators can't. And so the business dies after 3 months. And especially for smaller, earlier stage businesses, number one goal for me is just stay alive. Just get some cash flow coming in so you stay alive until you figure things out. And they chase these massive payments that are a long time coming. It's hard. The other thing you mentioned was like they do a lot of free stuff. And free stuff is great, but I feel like, again, it used to work better. But again, with that, there's very, very long sales cycles on free stuff. Like I've published pieces and I've had people come to me a year or two afterwards going, hey, we saw that piece. You know, we've seen your emails and now we want to talk about maybe if you can help us. And it's like, yeah, great. It's great because I had bits in between that were coming through. But if I had to do something today that wasn't going to pay off for like a year, it's too long. And then because nowadays there's so much free content out there, your free content has to be magnitudes better than everybody else's. And most people then will be like, thanks for the free stuff. And that's it. They're like, well, why would I pay you? I've got everything that I need for free. And it's kind of this weird thing of getting people to go from free to paid, which is really quite hard. And people just keep giving away all of their best secrets for free. And I'm like, if this is your expertise, you should be charging for this. Like, if you can save somebody $100, you should charge $10 for that information. If you can save them $1,000, you know what I mean? Or if you can make them that much more money, you should be charging for it, because freebies just attracts those people who just want more free stuff. They're really hard to like get them to pay. I had an email list at one point that I built entirely through free stuff, and it wasn't big by any measure. It was like 2,000 people, and it was really hard for me to make any money off that list.
Seriously?
Because they just wanted more free stuff, yeah. And then this is the thing. So that system I talked about earlier where I was doing cold outreach, that's where I was getting like 90% of my clients. I had an email list of about 2,500 people, I think it was. And still 90% of the money I was making was coming from a completely different avenue where I was doing cold outreach to people.
That's crazy. That is really, really crazy to me. And I think I think that's quite eye-opening for a lot of people, because I think a lot of people, freelancers, marketers, consultants who haven't got really round to getting their teeth into building their own list, will think, gosh, if I had a list of 2,000 people, then that's, I'm sorted. That's easy money. That's clients all day. But that's not the case.
No. And it's, I know that I'd built the list of the wrong kind of people. I was giving out freebies to attract like other copywriters. Copywriters aren't going to hire a copywriter.
No.
So then I tried selling them courses and things, but I brought them in with too much free stuff. They were like, is it really going to be this much better? And all of these things. And I was like, oh, great. So I found it really hard to kind of monetize that list. And then you end up with that really lumpy cash flow where, you have a great week and then 2 really terrible weeks. In the freelance community, the big thing is like, the feast and famine cycles. But it's just that lumpy cash flow. You have some really good times and some absolutely awful times. And you think, oh, crap. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
But so I found that if you basically charge off the bat, it's much better. And not going in straight for the jugular and say like, this is a $10,000 engagement. A lot of people, that's a long consideration cycle. Anything that's over sort of $5,000, I find that people need to be a bit more considered with it. So it's really hard to go straight in for that. And this is for people who are probably doing, smaller coaching and stuff. $5,000 to like a big international, multinational B2B SaaS or something is nothing. And there's always price elasticity in these things depending on who your audience is and what the offer is. But if you're charging something over $5,000, it's probably going to take people a little bit of time to do it. So rather than go straight in with that, I always think that big offer is to take people from where they are to the end goal. And so what I'll do is I'll create something that just gets them over that first hurdle, and I'll sell that for really cheap. That basically
Okay, I
solves
see.
an immediate problem for them.
Yeah.
Because if they're feeling that pain acutely, spending $20 to solve it is like, oh my God, if I can spend $20 and get a solution, brilliant. It's a no-brainer purchase for them. It's low enough cost that they don't have too many questions because they're like, look, if this doesn't work, I'll at least have learned something. But then that's what kind of kicks off the whole system then, which is where you kind of increase the offers that you make to them, the help that they get as a result of those offers, and then the results that they can get. And it's weird because the people who pay me, like the big high ticket one-to-one stuff, pretty much all of them have come through and bought something low cost first.
Interesting, because some people are probably listening, thinking, well, someone who wants, someone who's going to pay you $5,000 for a full consulting marketing service or whatever, that they're not going to waste their time with pocket change. But that's actually the opposite of what you found.
Yeah, I found most of them come through because if you've got like a really nicely defined ideal customer persona, they're all kind of experiencing the same problems. It might manifest in slightly different ways, but they're all having the same problems. They've all hit a barrier, and everybody's trying to sell them, oh look, pay me $5,000 a month and I'll help you solve it. And if you come along and go like, here's a $20 thing, it will get rid of that most immediate problem that you have. And then if that's of good quality and it helps them, then they're going to be like, there's new problems now. Because I always think it's just a sequence of problems. You solve one, but that creates a new problem. If you help somebody make 10K a month, they then need to know what to do with that 10K a month. And that's a whole new problem that they're not prepared for. So that's the next offer. And so you're just helping like a sequence of offers that solve sequential problems. And that leads people to the sort of one-to-one stuff. But a lot of people don't want to give away little pieces of things. They want to create these massive, big, all-encompassing courses, programs, systems. And it's too much. It's just too much. Like, go small.
Where do you think that comes from? That because I as you say that, I think I'm probably the same, and I wonder where that comes from and why, and then maybe how would you walk someone through undoing whatever false belief is underneath that, and getting down to something specific enough so that they can create something specific.
Yeah, as for where it comes from, I have no idea. But I know everybody does it. I've done it. One of the first courses that I created, it was like this massive course to teach freelancers how to run a business. And it went from everything to like how to set up your website all the way through to how to do your accounts and everything in between.
God.
And it did it, and it just would not sell. It's too overwhelming. Like, I don't think anybody's ever there like, I wish I knew how to run a business from start to finish. That's not what keeps people up at night. People are kept up and are like, I need to land 2 clients by the end of the month or else rent's going to be difficult to make or I'm going to miss a mortgage payment. And so what I always think of is like, what's that problem that's causing somebody stress? How do they sort of think about that? And then what's the easiest, smallest thing that you can create to help them see some progress? Because nobody wants to have to go like, right, if I need to like land 2 clients by the end of the month, I need to set up my website this way. I need to set up these 5 pages on the website. I then need to have this system to reach out to people, and this is the portfolio I need to create. What they want to do is they want a really simple system to follow. And so what I've done is like tried to reduce everything down to like the easiest to follow steps that are fast to implement, that get them some kind of progress, even if it's just that they feel better doing something. That's a win. So they don't feel, because a lot of the time problems are just from overwhelm. It's just removing the overwhelm, I think.
I see. Yeah. So the kind of minimum necessary steps, making it as easy as possible to solve that big next problem. Yeah. And
if you're not sure what it is, oh, sorry, go on.
No, carry on.
I was going to say, if you're not sure what it is, so the successful products that I launched, what I would do is I would get people on a phone call and I'd just, I'd used to do them as like free consultations. So 30-minute consultation, and I'd do it with 20 to 50 people. It's a lot of time that you're giving away for free, and people are like, I don't want to do that. But what you'll notice is, say, 60% of those people will have the same problem and they talk about it in the same way. And And that's what you figure out. It's like, they're not there going like, well, I don't know how to run a business. They're like saying, I need to land more clients. I need to make an extra $3,000 a month. I need to do this. Da, da, da. And that's how you come up with those like more specific things. I think a lot of people are creating offers, services, products, whatever it might be, in their own little bubble. And so they think they know what other people are feeling. And when you actually talk to other people, you'll find that a lot of them are stuck on one specific thing. And then they won't ever talk about like the system. People will love to create these systems like, oh, I've never spoken to somebody who's like, my cold outreach email system is this. They're like, that's how you might solve it. But the problem is that they want to land more clients, is that they want to lose an extra, 10 pounds of weight. They want to do this. That's the thing. So, then you just figure out that what's the fastest way you can solve it for them.
So you line up these consultations. How do you go about that? Do you have do you kind of reach out? Do you find potential dream customers and then send them an email?
So either do that with customers, put something on social media, wherever you might have any sort of engagement. Just do that. And there's something that I do when I'm trying to like test the waters on new products, where I call it spearfishing. Like I'll write something which is of like gives some value, and basically then the people who engage, and it'll be focused around one specific problem. So let's just go. I always default to like health and wellness offers because we've all been so over marketed to them with these. If it's like, if you write a post, if you're a personal trainer, you're like, oh, here's how you can lose 10 pounds by Christmas. I would write that in, Facebook groups, on LinkedIn, on wherever it might be that you have a potential audience. What you'll see is, as long as you can get good engagement, people will start to come like, oh, thanks so much. This has been really useful. And then I'd reach out to those people directly, because that's almost like a hand raise. Like, this is something that interests me. I have this problem. And so then I'll be like, hey, I'm actually doing some free consultations, 25 minutes of your time. Do you want to jump on a call sometime? Anything like that. If you have an email list, just send an email. Say, hey, I'm doing this. If you don't have an email list, I would do it that way. Just direct messaging people. Like we said earlier, I had like 3 this morning of just, hey, jump on a call. If they'd done something and I'd engage with it, and then they were like, oh, I saw that you engaged with this thing. Is that something you're interested in? Because I'm doing this. I might be like, oh, maybe. But that's the thing. All you're really looking for is that sort of digital hand raise, and then you can sort of progress with that.
Yeah, and anyone can do that. You don't need to have an asset like an email list or anything like that first.
No, I did it through Reddit as well. I just found some Reddit communities, wrote some valuable posts, and then basically people who commented on that, I just DM'd them. I was like, here's a sales page. And
really?
Generated some sales off that, because I wanted to test a new offer with a new audience to see if it would work, and that kind of worked. So ever since I've been doing those, I first started doing it in Facebook groups, found it worked quite well there, but it's just an easier way to get in, because by them seeing the post and then engaging, they kind of let their guard down a little bit.
Yeah, and it already positions you as someone who helps with that specific problem. So
exactly.
There's a big difference between outbound and inbound, isn't there? Like just that simple positioning is more than enough to justify really figuring it out. Yeah.
This thing, it just means that you basically turn like a cold outreach into a warm outreach.
Yeah.
So kind of a much better take rate, much better response rate, all of these things. So it's nice, but and so then that's the way that I would kind of check these things. But then just find a very, very small problem, or an urgent problem that somebody wants to solve quickly, and then figure out how you can solve that with as little time and effort on their part as possible. One of the problems that I see a lot of people doing, and you get this terribly with like a lot of the free offers, it creates more work for the person who's getting it. So I see these people like, oh, look, I've put a list together of 7,000 prompts to use with AI that will help you do this. And it's a free spreadsheet. And I guarantee people do a lot of people do what I do with this, is they download it and then it goes into a Google Drive somewhere, never to be looked at again. Because you look at it and you're like, right, there's 7,000 prompts here. Where do I begin?
Yeah.
It's too broad of a problem. Whereas if you're focusing on, I don't know, email copywriters, and you said, I've created a prompt that you can put into ChatGPT, and it will give you 10 subject line variants to test for better open rates. These are based on the top open rate emails of all time. Basically, for that person then, who might have to write 10 email variants for their, whoever their editor is, they can just go in and it takes them 30 seconds. It's much, much smaller. It solves a problem that, I've made up the problem, but imagine if they did have that problem. It solves that specific problem, and it's easy. So you could sell that for $10, because that $10 is going to save them how much time? Having to come up with new headline variants. But less is more, I find.
Yeah, less is more. So the big obstacles that someone who is like, right, okay, that sounds good. I'd much rather have people who basically prove that they're up for spending a bit of money on the problem, and that not have a list of kind of freebie seekers. Let's do it. What do you find then are the big obstacles that people come up against? And probably overwhelm is one of them. So talk us through what people who start trying to do this come up against, and what you'd maybe suggest to keep going.
The first thing is overwhelm. It's like, where do I begin, and all of this sort of thing. An easy solution to that is just choose the smallest actions you can take. Again, I find that a lot of the growth advice is given out by these big tech companies who've got these massive resources, or an employee within. And I would never take advice from an employee of HubSpot. Not that they're bad at their job, they're playing a different game. And so they're like, you have to publish on this platform, this platform, this platform, this platform, this platform. And so the solopreneurs out there think, I have to do that as well. You can't compete. So just do the minimum thing. So if you're worried about overwhelm, think, right, where's my ideal customer going to be hanging out? They're on Reddit. So I'm going to go to Reddit. Which subreddits? These 5 subreddits. This is where I'm going to be active. I'm going to share the same post in these 5 every day. Done. That makes it a little easier in terms of what you actually have to do. So just reduce it down to the bare minimum. That's the first thing that I would recommend to get over that overwhelm. Another problem that I often see is people are their own worst enemies, because they think, but I could also do this. I could also do that. Again, the smallest thing. If you're going to give somebody something, make sure it just solves their problem as quick as possible. If it's, helping somebody lose £10 by Christmas, don't give them here's a massive nutrition plan. Here's this, here's that. What's going to be the biggest lever pull for them? What's going to have the biggest effect? It's probably 5 exercises that they can do at home. So just put that together with detailed instructions on how to do them with good form, and sell it to them for $9.99 or something. And then you can say, if you also want the nutrition plan, it's an extra $50. It's all of this stuff. So don't think that you need to keep adding all of this stuff. Just keep it simple. And the other thing is fear. I see a lot of people, they're worried about a couple of things. 1, failing. They're worried 2 about how other people will view them. And 3, if they get into paid ads, which is where I now prefer to spend most of my time. If they get into paid ads, they're worried they'll lose their money. Third thing is, my wife and I, we operate on something we call the 2-week rule, which is in 2 weeks, nobody will remember anyway. If you think of the last bad outreach that you got, where you're like, oh my God, this guy is so annoying. I'm never going to buy from them. Can you remember who it was? The name of the person or the business?
Absolutely not. Not a chance.
No. So 2 weeks, no one's going to remember anyway, unless you do something that is absolutely awful. You're insulting people's mothers or something. No one's going to remember. So I like to use that as almost that should be empowering more than anything else. I could do whatever I want. No one's going to remember when I fail. As for the fear of failure, you're going to fail. You've just got to get used to it. More failures than wins. That's just part of the course. But as long as you learn from them, it's a win. You just got to tweak it as you go along to try and get to where you need to be. And as for the paid ads thing, I think everybody still has fear on that. And it's just you've just got to approach it in a way where you kind of minimize the potential losses, and start off, if you're right at the beginning, start with ad spend that you're happy to lose. If it doesn't work, don't put yourself in that position where I've got, 5,000 in the bank. I'm going to put 5,000 into ads. Don't do that. Start off small and then, sort of scale up from there based on the feedback that you're getting. And if you've got a good offer, you should be clawing some of that ad spend back at least.
Right. Yeah. Because even if people buy the front end, then you've got a small list of actual buyers, right? So.
Exactly. Yeah. And like there's people that I've worked with where the front end generates, daily sales, and it might be profit on each one. It might be break even, but they make always a lion's share of the money that you make will be off the back end stuff, the higher ticket stuff. In my mind, these little front end products are there to solve an initial problem, to bring you a list of buyers, and to build that trust immediately. Because you give out the freebie stuff, no one uses it, so no one remembers you. You make them pay, they've got skin in the game, they're going to use it, they're going to trust you, that authority is built. And so then when you turn around in a week and you say, hey, I've got this new thing that's coming out, you interested? They'll be like, actually, that last thing you did was really good, so I'm interested. And that's where you make the big profits.
Yeah. So what do you think is really, you've said a few things that you've always been good at just writing quickly. That's a real kind of beneficial asset. And it sounds like you've got a very internalized kind of good attitude set of beliefs that let you navigate things like imposter syndrome, fear of failure, overwhelm. What do you think you always had these? Do you think you accumulated them? Do you have any practices that actually help you keep on them?
Didn't always have it, and we were talking earlier. I had that real confidence at the start. I was like, sign my first client, I am unstoppable. And I would like publish things, and then I was just like, amazing. How could you not want to pay me? And then obviously you don't see sales coming in. And then I saw somebody share something that I created on Reddit, and it got absolutely destroyed. Not one positive comment. And it was a friend of mine who shared it, because my friend was like, this is really good. They shared it on Reddit, it got absolutely destroyed. And I remember emailing my friend going like, mate, I have just been demolished.
Oh my God,
like, oh, sorry. And so I didn't really have a good system to kind of deal with that. So I just closed the laptop and I went out. I was like, I'm just going to go do something else. So, I just went out for the day. It was fine. At the end of it, I thought, you know what? My day has still continued. Like nobody in the real world knows what's just happened. So I'll just try again tomorrow. And I think that was really the thing. It's just once you've been through it once or twice, you just learn it's really not that important.
Yeah.
And if you look at anybody who's had, really good success, there's times in the past where they've been absolutely demolished. They've failed horrendously, and yet they just kept going. And so that's the thing. Take a day or something, go watch a movie, do something just where it takes your mind off what's happening, and then just get back to it. And I think that's the thing. Optimize for the actions. So if I need to send an email every day, I'm just going to be like, right, I just need to send another email. Anything you do, you'll be terrible at first, but you'll get better over time. It's just making peace with the fact that you will be terrible for a little bit.
That's perfect. Pete, where can someone find out how to get started so we can start being terrible and then get good and then get good at something that's actually really worth getting good at?
Growthmodels.co is where I do all of my stuff at the minute. So if you go to growthmodels.co, the homepage is literally just a join the email list. And then as soon as you join, I'll try and sell you something.
Fantastic.
That's essentially what it is.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, so you can use a free upfront offer as long as then you switch straight to then seeing if you can create buyers.
Yeah, with things like the ads that I'm running, I only really run ads to one of two things, which will be directly to a product page, because I want to pay $100 in ads today and I want to get $100 back, because I want to keep that going, because that money isn't that important. What's more important is that I'm adding people to my email list who are willing to pay for stuff. The other thing that I'll do is I'll run ads to something that is a promotion, and then basically there'll be a video sales letter or something, and then there'll be like a week or a 2 week promotion of an offer. And basically, again, I'm just trying to find out who the givers and the takers are. So I'm just trying to find out who's going to actually pay for stuff, because once you start to find who those people are, you'll find all of the key metrics go up. Open rates, engagements, so clicks, replies, and then when you do new offers, purchases of those as well. It's just finding the serious people who really have that problem that you're trying to solve and are willing to pay for help to get it done. So you can grow a list with free stuff, but just try and sell something as soon as possible to find who those really serious people are. There are guys out there who have got really big email lists, and you'll see that quite often they'll sell look, I've created this thing, it's $1. And I guarantee all that they're doing is finding out who it is that they should focus on moving forward.
So they can get that segment of, top subscribers, basically.
Exactly. And then they pay $1 today, you sell them something in a week for $20. Most of those will buy it. It's just that self-graduating system. Some people will top out at $20, but they're still worth more in terms of the feedback and the engagement and everything that you'll get from them than the people who will never pay.
Right, because you can keep making more $20 stuff.
Exactly, and they're just more engaged, which is just way better, because if you ask for some feedback, hey, what do you think about this? These are the people who will get back to you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Pete. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Hopefully I covered everything and all is good.
Yeah. I mean, that's brilliant.